Happy Friday. I hope you've had a great week and you're getting ready for some rest and relaxation this weekend. We're going to be carrying on with the BFG. We're on to lesson number 10. Okay, so some important words, some key words for you are going to be written in red. There's going to be some questions for you to answer, and these will be in blue. And just like the rest of our lessons, there's going to be some writing time, and this is going to be highlighted for you in green. Okay, so let's see who's got themselves organised. Who's got a copy of the story, a strategy prompt sheet, a pencil or pen, a piece of paper, or their home learning book? Great. If you've got everything ready, well done. You're super organised. If you're missing something, press pause now and go and make sure you've got everything together. The BFG by Roald Dahl. Okay, so we're going to continue with strategy number 3. My turn, inference. Your turn. My turn, inference. Your turn. Okay. I want you to think about what does inference mean and why do good readers make inferences. Make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. When you've done that, press play and continue. Press pause now. Fantastic, you're back. So, what did you think that inference means? You might have text clues plus your schema equals an inference. You might say that the author leaves clues for you to find out. You might have said it's reading between the lines. And you might have said that good readers make inferences because it helps you to understand the story better and makes the story more interesting. Okay, let's have a look at some of the vocabulary we're going to come across in this lesson. We're going to come across a phrase, my turn, frowning mightily, your turn. My turn, frowning mightily, your turn. So frowning mightily is a very big frown, a look on the face of absolute displeasure. Somebody who is not very happy would be frowning mightily. My turn, forbidden, your turn. My turn, forbidden, your turn. Forbidden. It means that you're not allowed to do something, that you're banned from doing it. Forbidden. My turn, ecstasy, your turn. My turn, ecstasy, your turn. Ecstasy is a feeling and it's overwhelming. It's a huge feeling of absolute happiness or joy. Ecstasy. My turn, dancing a jig, your turn. My turn, dancing a jig, your turn. So if somebody is dancing a jig, they're doing a dance, which is a lively dance with lots of jumping and leaping. Dancing a jig. Great, so we're going to be looking out for those 1 mark and 2 mark questions again so we can give our 1 mark and 2 mark answers. Let's all sing this together. Are you ready? 1 mark questions need a short, snappy answer. 1 mark questions need a short, snappy answer. 1 mark questions need a short, snappy answer. Fantastic. Okay, 2 mark questions. Are you ready? Get your fists ready to punch in the air. Let's hear you singing. 2 mark questions need a PE answer. 2 mark questions need a PE answer. 2 mark questions need a PE answer. And the P is your point. It's the main idea, what you want to talk about. And the E is the evidence. So it's examples or quotes, something to help to justify and prove your point. Okay, so you're going to love this chapter. It's really, really funny, and it's a little bit rude. Okay, are you ready? We're going to be on page 56. So get yourselves ready on your books to page 56. And it is called Frob Scottle and Whiz Poppers. I wonder what it's going to be about. We're going to read, and you're going to follow along. We're going to stop at points to ask questions. Are you ready? Fingers ready. Let's go. By now, Sophie was beginning to feel not only extremely hungry, but very thirsty as well. Had she been at home, she would have finished her breakfast long ago. Are you sure there's nothing else to eat around here except for those disgusting, smelly snoscumbers? She asked. Not even a fizzwinkle, answered the big friendly giant. In that case, may I please have a little water? She said. Water? Said the BFG, frowning mightily. What is water? We drink it, Sophie said. What do you drink? Frobscottle, announced the BFG. All giants is drinking frobscottle. Is it as nasty as your snoscumbers? Sophie asked. Nasty? Cried the BFG. No, never is it nasty. Frobscottle is sweet and jumbly. He got up from his chair and he went to a second huge cupboard. He opened it and took out a glass bottle that must have been 6 feet tall. The liquid inside was pale green and the bottle was half full. Here is Frobscottle, he cried, holding the bottle up proud and high, as though it contained some rare wine. Delumptious, fizzy Frobscottle, he shouted, and he gave it a shake, and the green stuff began to fizz like mad. So we're going to stop there because I've got a question. I want to know, what is the BFG's opinion of Frobscottle? Now, this is a 2-mark question, so I know it needs a PE answer. I'm going to have to give my opinion, and I'm going to have to back it up with evidence from the book. So, what is the BFG's opinion of Frobscottle? Well, I think the BFG thinks Frobscottle is delicious, and he is very proud of it. Okay, now I'm going to back it up with my evidence. I think this because in the text the BFG says Frobscottle is sweet and jumbly, and he holds the bottle up high and proud. He's really proud of it. He said it's sweet and jumbly. Jumbly's a made-up word, but it sounds like a good word. Want you to say your answer out loud and then write it down on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press pause now. Okay, you're back. Let's keep reading. I wonder what Frobscottle is. But look, it's fizzing the wrong way, Sophie cried, and indeed it was. The bubbles, instead of travelling upwards and bursting on the surface, were shooting downwards and bursting at the bottom. A pale green frothy fizz was forming at the bottom of the bottle. What on earth is you meaning the wrong way? Asked the BFG. Okay, so I now know that Frobscottle is a type of drink with lots of bubbles in it. Now here's my question. Why does the BFG question Sophie? What on earth is you meaning the wrong way? This is another 2-mark question, so we need point and evidence. I want you to say your answer out loud, then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or your home learning book. Why does the BFG question Sophie? What on earth is you meaning the wrong way? Why does the BFG say that? Press pause now. Fantastic, you're back. Well, here's what I wrote. I think the BFG says the wrong way because he thinks that the bubbles should go down, not up. I think this because if you are used to the bubbles going down, you would think that this was the correct way for bubbles to go. Was that similar to your answer? Okay, let's keep reading. Make sure you're following along with your finger. In our fizzy drinks, Sophie said, the bubbles always go up and burst at the top. Upwards is the wrong way, cried the BFG. You mustn't ever be having the bubbles going upwards. That's the most flush-bunking rubbish I ever is hearing. Why do you say that? Sophie asked. You was asking me why? Cried the BFG, waving the enormous bottle around as though he were conducting an orchestra. You was actually meaning to tell me you cannot see why it is a scrotty mistake to have the bubbles flying up instead of down? You said it was flush-bunking. Now you say it's scrotty. Which is it? Sophie asked politely. Both, cried the BFG. It is a flush-bunking and a scrotty mistake to let the bubbles go upwards. If you can't see why, you must be as quacky as a duck-hound. Boy, Ringo, your head must be so full of frod-squinkers and buzzwangers, I is fritted if I know how you can think at all. Why shouldn't the bubbles go upwards? Sophie asked. I will explain, said the BFG, but tell me first what name is you calling your frog-scottle by? One is Coke, Sophie said, another is Pepsi. There are lots of them. And the bubbles is all going up. They all go up, Sophie said. Catastrophe, cried the BFG. Upgoing bubbles is a catastrophist catastrophe. Will you please tell me why? Sophie asked. If you will listen carefully, I will try to explain, said the BFG, but your brain is so full of bug waffles, I doubt you will ever understand. I'll do my best, Sophie said patiently. Very well, then. When you is drinking this cokey drink of yours, said the BFG, it is going straight down into your tummy. Is that right, or is that left? It's right, Sophie said, and the bubbles is going also into your tummy, right or left? Right again, Sophie said, and the bubbles is fizzing upwards? Of course, Sophie said, which means, said the BFG, that they will all be coming swish-waffling up your throat and out your mouth and make a falsome belchy burp. That is often true, Sophie said, but what's wrong with a little burp now and again? It's sort of fun. Burping is filthsome, the BFG said. Us giants is never doing it. But with your drink, Sophie said, what was it you called it? Frobscottle, said the BFG. With frobscottle, Sophie said, the bubbles in your tummy will be going downwards, and that could have a far nastier result. Why nasty? Asked the BFG, frowning. Because, Sophie said, blushing a little, if they go down instead of up, they'll be coming out of somewhere else with an even louder and ruder noise. Oh, Whiz-Popper! Cried the BFG, beaming at her. Us giants is making whiz-poppers all the time. Whiz-popping is a sign of happiness. It's music in our ears. You surely is not telling me that a little whiz-popping is forbidden among human beings? Okay, we're going to stop there. Have you worked out what a whiz-popper is? Why does the BFG prefer the bubbles to go down, not up? So this is a 1-mark question, so it's a short, snappy answer. I want you to have a little think, say your answer out loud, then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your homework book. Then press play to continue. Press pause now. Fantastic. Okay, so why does the BFG prefer the bubbles to go down, not up? I've put the BFG prefers the bubbles to go down because they cause a whiz-popper. I wonder what answer you put. Okay, let's keep reading. It is considered extremely rude, said Sophie. But you is whiz-popping, is you not, now and again? Asked the BFG. Everyone is whiz-popping, if that's what you call it, Sophie said. Kings and queens are whiz-popping, presidents are whiz-popping, glamorous film stars are whiz-popping, little babies are whiz-popping. But where I come from, It's not polite to talk about it. Ridunculous, said the BFG. If everyone is making whiz poppers, then why not talk about it? We is now having a swiggle of this delicious frobscottle, and you will see the happy results. The BFG shook the bottle vigorously. The pale green stuff fizzed and bubbled. He removed the cork and took a tremendous gurgling swig. It's glummy, he cried. I love it. And we're going to stop there. Have you worked out what a whiz popper is? And can you give me some evidence? It's a 2-mark question. Have a little think, say your answer out loud, then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper. Do that now. Press pause. Great. Okay, you're back. And do you know what a whiz popper is? I think a whiz popper is the same as flatulence when you break wind. There might be other words that you've used there. I've tried to use the scientific term flatulence. And I've put here for my evidence, I think this because Sophie said that for humans whiz popping is rude, but everyone does it. Although it is not polite to talk about it, and that definitely sounds like flatulence to me. Okay, we're going to keep reading. For a few moments, the big friendly giant stood quite still, and a look of absolute ecstasy began to spread over his long, wrinkly face. Then suddenly the heavens opened up, and he let fly with a series of the loudest and rudest noises Sophie had ever heard in her life. They reverberated around the walls of the cave like thunder, and the glass jars rattled on their shelves. But most astonishing of all, the force of the explosions actually lifted the enormous giant clear off his feet like a rocket. Whoopee! He cried, and when he came down to earth again, now that is whiz popping for you. Sophie burst out laughing. She couldn't help it. Have some yourself, cried the BFG, tipping the neck of the enormous bottle towards her. Don't you have a cup? Sophie said. No cups, only bottles. Sophie opened her mouth, and very gently the BFG tipped the bottle forward and poured some of the fabulous frobscottle down her throat. And oh gosh, how delicious it was! It was sweet and refreshing. It tasted of vanilla and cream, with just the faintest trace of raspberries on the edge of the flavour. And the bubbles were wonderful. Sophie could actually feel them bouncing and bursting all around her tummy. It was an amazing sensation. It felt as though hundreds of tiny people were dancing a jig inside her and tickling her with their toes. It was lovely. It's lovely, she cried. Just wait, said the BFG, flapping his ears. Sophie could feel the bubbles travelling lower and lower down her tummy, and then suddenly, inevitably, the explosion came. The trumpet sounded, and she too made the walls of the cavern ring with the sound of music and thunder. Bravo! Shouted the BFG, waving the bottle. You is very good for a beginner. Let's have some more. That's the end of that chapter. But we're going to read another chapter, sometimes like we do in class, just so that we can get through the whole book in 4 weeks. So I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy as I read to you page 62, as I read to you the chapter Journey to Dream Country, starting on page 62. You can follow along in your book if you want to. Journey to Dream Country. After the mad frobscottle party was over, Sophie settled herself again on top of the enormous table. You is feeling better now? Asked the big friendly giant. Much better, thank you, Sophie said. Whenever I is feeling a bit scrotty, the BFG said, a few gallops of frobscottle is always making me hopscotchy again. I must say it's quite an experience, Sophie said. It's a raz-twizzler, said the BFG said. It's gloriumptious, and he turned away and strode across his cave picked up his dream-catching net. "I is galloping off now," he said, "to catch some more wafty-wafting dreams for my collection. I is doing this every day without missing. Is you wishing to come with me?" "Not me, thank you very much," Sophie said, "not with those other giants lurking outside. I is snuggling you very cosy into the pocket of my waistcoat," the BFG said. "Then no one is seeing you." Before Sophie could protest, he had picked her up off the table and popped her into the waistcoat pocket. There was plenty of room in there. "Is you wishing for a little hole to peep out from?" he asked her. "There's one here already," she said. She had found a small hole in the pocket, and then she put one eye close to it. She could see out very well indeed. She watched the BFG as he bent down and filled his suitcase with empty glass jars. He closed the lid, picked up the suitcase in one hand, took the pole with the net on the other end in the other hand, and marched towards the entrance of the cave. As soon as he was outside, the BFG set off across the great hot yellow wasteland where the blue rocks lay and the dead trees stood, and where all the other giants were skulking about. Sophie, squatting low on her heels in the pocket of the leather waistcoat, had one eye glued to the little hole. She saw the group of enormous giants about 300 yards ahead. "Hold your breath," the BFG whispered down to her. "Cross your fingers. Here we go. We're going right past all these other giants. Is you seeing that whooping great one, the one nearest to us?" "I see him," Sophie whispered back, quivering. "It's the horriblest of them all, and the biggest of them all, and he's called the flesh-lump-eating giant." "I don't want to hear about him," Sophie said. "He is 54 feet high," the BFG said softly as he jogged along, "and he is swallowing human beings like they're sugar lumps, 2 or 3 at a time." "You're making me nervous," Sophie said. "I is nervous myself," the BFG whispered. "I always gets jumpy as a jolcopper when the flesh-lump-eating giant is around." "Keep away from him," Sophie pleaded. "Not possible," the BFG answered. "He's galloping easily 2 times as quickly as me." "Shall we turn back?" Sophie said. "Turning back is worse," the BFG said. "If they is seeing me running away, they is all giving chase and throwing rocks." "They would never eat you, though, would they?" Sophie asked. "Giants is never guzzling other giants," the BFG said. "They is fighting and squirreling a lot with each other, but that never guzzling. Human beings is more tasty to them." The giant had already spotted the BFG, and all heads were turned, watching him as he jogged forward. He was aiming to pass well to the right of the group. Through her peephole, Sophie saw the flesh-lump-eating giant moving over to intercept them. He didn't hurry. He just looped over casually to a point where the BFG would have to pass. The others lopped after him. Sophie counted 9 of them altogether and recognized the blood bottle in the middle of them. They were bored. They had nothing to do until nightfall. There was an air of menace about them as they lopped slowly across the plain with long, lolloping strides, heading for the BFG. "Here comes the runty one," boomed the flesh-lump-eater. "Ho, ho there, runty one! Where is your splatchwinkling away to in such a hefty hurry?" He shot an enormous arm and grabbed the BFG by the hair. The BFG didn't struggle. He simply stopped and stood quite still and said, "Be kind. Be so kind as to be letting go of my hair, flesh-lump-eater." The flesh-lump-eater released him and stepped back at a pace. The other giants stood around waiting for the fun to start. "Now there, you little grub squiffler," boomed the flesh-lump-eater. "We is all of us wanting to know where you is galloping off to every day in the daytime. Nobody ought to be galloping off anywhere until it's getting dark. The human beings could easily be spotting you and starting a giant hunt. And we's not wanting that to happen, is we not?" "We is not," shouted the other giants. "Go back to your cave, runty one." "I is not galloping to any human being country," the BFG said. "I is going to other places." "I is thinking," said the flesh lump eater, that you is catching human beings and keeping them as pets. Right you is, cried the blood bottler. Just now I is hearing him chittering away to one of them in his cave. You is welcome to go and search my cave. From Frank to Bunt, the BFG answered. You can go looking into every nook and nanny, crooked nanny. There is no human beans or stringy beans or runner beans or jelly beans or any other beans in here. Sophie crouched still as a mouse inside the BFG's pocket. She hardly dared breathe. She was terrified she might sneeze. The slightest sound or movement would give her away. Through the tiny peephole she watched the giants clustering around the poor BFG. How revolting they were! All of them had piggy little eyes and enormous mouths with thick sausage lips. When the flesh lump eater was speaking, she got a glimpse of his tongue. It was jet black, like a slab of black steak. Every one of them was more than twice as tall as the BFG. Suddenly the flesh lump eater shot out two enormous hands and grabbed the BFG around the waist. He tossed him high in the air and shouted, "Catch him, man-hugger!" The man-hugger caught him. The other giants spread out quickly in a large circle, and each giant about 20 yards from his neighbour, preparing for the game they were going to play. Now the man-hugger threw the BFG high and far, shouting, "Catch him, Bone Cruncher!" The Bone Cruncher ran forward and caught the tumbling BFG and immediately swung him up again. "Catch him, Child Chewer!" he shouted. And so it went on. The giants were playing ball with the BFG, vying each other to see who could throw him the highest. Sophie dug her nails into the sides of the pocket, trying to prevent herself from tumbling out when she was upside down. She felt as though she were in a barrel going over the Niagara Falls, and all the time there was the fearful danger that one of the giants would fail to catch the BFG and he would go crashing to the ground. "Catch him, Meat Dripper, catch him! Gizzard Gulper, catch him! Maid Masher, catch him! Blood Bottler, catch him, catch him, catch him!" In the end, they got bored with this game. They dumped the poor BFG on the ground. He was dazed and shattered. They gave him a few kicks and shouted, "Run, you little runt! Let us be seeing how far you is galloping." The BFG ran. What else could he do? The giants picked up rocks and hurled them after him. He managed to dodge them. "Ruddy little runt," they shouted, "trodgy little twit, shrivelly little shrimp, mucky little midget, squaggly little squib, groggy little grub." And at last the BFG got clear of all of them, and in another couple of minutes the pack of giants was out of sight over the horizon. Sophie popped her head up from the pocket. "I didn't like that," she said. "Phew," said the BFG, "few and far between. They was a nasty crotching mood today, was they not? I is sorry you was having to have a whirligig time." "No worse than you," Sophie said. "Would they ever really hurt you?" "I isn't ever trusting them," the BFG said. "How do they actually catch the humans they eat?" Sophie asked. "They is usually just sticking an arm in through the bedroom window and snatching them from their beds," the BFG said. "Like you did to me." "Ah, but I isn't eating you," the BFG said. "How else do they catch them?" Sophie asked. "Sometimes," the BFG said, "they is swimming in front of the sea like fishies with only their ear edge showing above the water, and then out comes a big hairy hand and grabbles one of them off the beach. Children as well, often chittlers," the BFG said, "little chittlers who is building sandcastles on the beach. That is who the swimming ones are after. Little chittlers is not so tough to eat as old Grandmama, so say the child-chewing giant." As they talked, the BFG was galloping fast over the land. Sophie was standing right up in his waistcoat pocket now and holding onto the edge with both hands. Her head and shoulders were in the open and the wind was blowing in her hair. "How else do they catch people?" she asked. "All of them is having their own special way of catching the human being," said the BFG. "The meat-dripping giant is preferring to pretend that he's a big tree growing in the park. He is standing in the park in the dusty evening, and he is holding great big branches over his head, And there he is, waiting until some happy families is coming to have a picnic under the spreading tree. The meat-dripping giant is watching them as they lay out their little picnic. But in the end, it is the meat-dripper who is having the picnic. It is too awful, Sophie cried. The gizzard-gulping giant here is a city lover. The BFG went on. The gizzard-gulper is lying high up in between the roofs of the houses on the big cities. He is lying there snuggy as a sniggler and watching the human beings walking on the street below. And when he sees one that looks like it has a whoopsie good flavour, he grabs it. He is simply reaching down and snatching it off the street like a monkey taking a nut. He says it is nice to be able to pick and choose what you is having for dinner. He says it is like choosing from a menu. Don't people see him doing it? Sophie asked. Never as they seeing him. Do not forget it is dusky dark at this time. Also, the gizzard gulper has a very fast arm. His arm is going up and down quicker than Squinker's. But if all these people are disappearing every night, surely there's some sort of outcry, Sophie said. The world is a whopping big place. The BFG said it has 100 different countries. The giants is clever. They is careful not to be skittling off to the same country too often. They is always switch fiddling around. Even so, Sophie said. Do not forget, the BFG said, that human beings is disappearing everywhere all the time without the giants is guzzling them up. Human beings is killing each other much quicker than the giants is doing it. But they don't eat each other, Sophie said. Giants isn't eating each other either, the BFG said, nor is giants killing each other. Giants is not very lovely, but they are not killing each other. Nor is the crocodile down dillies killing other crocodile dillies, nor is the pussycats killing pussycats. They kill mice, but they is not killing their own kind. The BFG said, human beings are the only animal that is killing their own kind. Don't poisonous snakes kill each other? Sophie asked. She was searching desperately for another creature that behaved as badly as the human. Even poisonous snakes is never killing each other, the BFG said, nor is the fearsome creatures like tigers or rhinoceroses. None of them is ever killing their own kind. Have you ever thought about that? Sophie kept silent. I is not understanding human beings at all, the BFG said. You is a human being, and you is saying it is grisly and horrorous for giants to be eating human beings. Right or left? Right, said Sophie. But human beings are squishing each other all the time, the BFG said. They are shooting guns and going in aeroplanes to drop their bombs on each other's heads. Every week, human beings is always killing other human beings. He was right, of course he was, and Sophie knew it. She was beginning to wonder whether humans were actually any better than the giants. Even so, she said, defending her own race, I think it's rotten that those foul giants should go off every night to eat humans. Humans have never done them any harm. That is what the little pickywig is saying every day, the BFG answered. He is saying, I have never done any harm to the human being, so why should he be eating me? Oh dear, Sophie said. The human being is making rules to suit themselves. The BFG went on, but the rules they is making do not suit the little piggy wiggies. Am I right or left? Right, Sophie said. Giants is also making rules. Their rules is not suiting the human beings. Everybody is making his own rules to suit himself. But you don't look at that those beastly giants are eating humans every night, do you? Sophie said. I do not, the BFG answered firmly. One right is not making two lefts. If you is quite cosy down there in my pocket. I'm fine, Sophie said. Then suddenly, once again, the BFG went into that magical top gear of his. He began curtling forwards with phenomenal leaps. His speed was unbelievable. The landscape became blurred, and again Sophie had to duck down out of the whistling gale to save her head from being blown off her shoulders. She crouched in the pocket and listened to the wind screaming past. It came knifing in through the tiny peephole in the pocket and whooshed around her like a hurricane. But this time the BFG didn't stand top gear for long. It seemed as though he had had some barriers to cross, a vast mountain perhaps, or an ocean, or a great desert. But having crossed it, he once again slowed down to his normal gallop, and Sophie was able to pop her head up and look out once more at the view. She noticed immediately that they were now in an altogether paler country. The sun had disappeared above a film of vapour. The air was becoming cooler every minute. The land was flat and treeless. and there seemed to be no colour in it at all. Every minute the mist became thicker, the air became colder still, and everything became paler and paler until soon there was nothing but grey and white all around them. They were in a country of swirling mists and ghostly vapours. There was some sort of grass underfoot, but it was not green, it was ashy grey. There was no sign of a living creature and no sound at all except for the soft thud of the BFG's footsteps as he hurtled on through the fog. Suddenly he stopped. "We're there at last," he announced, and he bent down and lifted Sophie from his pocket and put her on the ground. She was still in her nightie and her feet were bare. She shivered and stared around her at the swirling mist and ghostly vapours. "Where are we?" she asked. "We is in Dream Country," so the BFG said. "This is where all dreams is beginning." And that is the end of that chapter. What a long chapter. Have you got any questions? Make some notes of any questions that you might have. And we're going to come back on Monday and we're going to continue reading the BFG, and we're still going to be focusing on inference. Maybe you could also try and write some of your own inference questions. Have a lovely weekend. Take care, and we'll be back on Monday.